The focal point of this discussion is obviously the book that you have recently written, Modi and India 2024 and the Battle for Bharat. So right off the bat, is the book about Modi? Is it a political potboiler that it sounds like?
If it was a book about Mr. Modi, it would have been probably as thick as that. I don't think one can do justice to his career in a book that's about 230 odd pages with 100 pages of just annotations. This book is not about any individual. It's a very balanced account of what Mr. Modi aspires this country to be. So it's an interrogation of basically an idea, a bunch of ideas. That's what this book is about, and it's a co-authored book. My colleague Siddharth Talia from a previous organization and I got together. It was something that came right up. Very surprisingly, one of the editors at Penguin, Premanka Goswami, walked in to my office with another luminary, really, and Vikram Sampath. Everyone's probably heard of Vikram Sampath. You probably haven't heard much about me, but nonetheless, they both came in and they said, look, why don't you write? Because, you know, we've been looking at your articles, you've got a thought going and this, that, the other. Why don't you write a book? And why don't you write it on the elections? I said, look, I think you're overestimating me. I'm not one of those guys who really hits the ground and has my finger on the nation's pulse. So I'm not even a cephalogist. I'm an ideas guy. So they said, why don't you write about an idea? And that got me thinking. And just after they left, I turned to the whiteboard and I sort of sketched out the outline of this book. I said, and we can obviously come to that in just a few moments. And I sort of worked it out on a flow chart. And then got back to them and I said, I think I have an idea. So the book is really about the idea.
Okay, fair enough. Why did you personally feel inclined to write something? Because you say that it's not an individual account of Modi ji, but rather the idea, as you put it. Could you elaborate on the idea and why personally you felt responsible that you should write this book? Yeah.
Well, to be honest, this book does look at the election in 2024 as a watershed. Now, as a journalist who's, I would say, center-right, and I'm in no certain terms, I'm politically maybe a bit on the right, but culturally I'm very liberal. We're all liberals, actually. The word here, of course, conservative, is sort of misunderstood. Basically, I would be very centrist if I was in America, but here you're sort of denotated as, oh, pro-Modi, you know, and anti-Modi, you know, so that's the way it is. But I think, let's just put it this way, the detractors of Mr. Modi and the BJP say that, look, after 2024, India is going to be unrecognizable as an entity, constitutional entity. And the term that was used by Shashi Tharoor, who's probably the most eloquent person in the opposition benches, has come out and said that, look, India is going to become a Hindu Pakistan. That we're going to be turned irrevocably into a Hindu Rashtra that is very narrow in its thinking and exclusivist in the way it sort of militates against certain denominations, Muslims in particular. And you know, if you say it often enough, you begin to wonder if that's really what is happening, because there's been a constant number of steps that the government in its second iteration, 2019, began to take. And one obviously gets a bit rattled and also curious. And since they were doing a few things that I had written about when, you know, back in 2000 for the Times of India, when I was a very young person on the edit page, I found it very difficult to sort of reconcile with the opposition's critique of these ideas. I mean, I've championed the UCC, I championed the abrogation of 370 and Article 35A for years altogether. In fact, I think I'm the most consistent journalist. I've seen a lot of journalists who've actually changed, you know, sides, but I believed what I believed. And in the Times of India, I remember when I wrote this piece about the abrogation of Article 370, the very next day, my editor, the edit page editor, wrote a piece contradicting me. So even then, there was this reflex, oh my God, don't talk about things that have acquired a kind of status quo in this country. So I just find it rather intriguing because, you know, amongst liberals, you're supposed to be open to different points of view. But I find that I met somebody the other day who is the scion of a political family, a person who I actually went to school with, and she was in my class. And I was at this party, and she's a top-ranking politician's child. And she said to me, "Hi, Rahul, how are you?" And I sort of did mischievously go up and ask her how she was. And she said, "I'm fine, but what have you guys done? You've killed debate in this country." I'm saying, "But we're already beginning a debate." And then I said, "But why do you feel like, and then she sort of went off into a bit of a rant. And then I said, "Why don't you read my book?" She said, "I'll burn the book if I ever laid my hands on it." And I said to her, "But you're a liberal, aren't you?" And I walked away smiling. But I find that this visceral sort of lack of appreciation for another point of view is worrying for me. And I don't have much of that. So I just thought that, maybe the time has come to put down all my thoughts in a book. And my co-author and myself worked very hard on making sure that it is very well annotated, because I know that I'm pretty much on the hit list, so everyone will sort of start shredding the book the moment it comes out. So it has 101 pages of annotations, and I have to say I was very, very generous of Salman Khurshid and Pavan Verma to actually review the manuscript. This actually is not the book. This is the manuscript of the book. So it says at the bottom, "Uncorrected proof, not for sale or quotation," because Penguin only gave me 3 copies of the book. But I have this. And Salman said, "Intensely researched argument about an alternative idea of India." Vivek Debroy said, "Focuses on how dharma provides the foundation of a new republic." And then Pavan Verma and others, meticulously researched arguments. So all of them talk about the research. And that's what makes this thesis very compelling, because it is deeply researched. And my thesis is that, look, a dharmic civilization like ours will not become a Hindu Rajya. People confuse the term Hindu Rashtra with Hindu Rajya. We are already a Hindu Rashtra. Just like America is a Christian Rashtra, Christian nation. Just like Britain is not only a Christian nation, but also a Christian Rajya. But they're all very secular countries. And there's a reason for it, which I explain. And I think that the civic iteration of Christianity that the British and then, of course, the Americans evolved in 1700 was borrowed very much from the larger philosophy, the outlook that the Hindu view on life, not even the way, we are not a way, we're a view on life, basically, projects. And they got inspired by our way, and unfortunately, we've had an interruption in the normal, what would have been a continuum of the Hindus' view on life. We've had, because of settler colonization, some interregnums. And I think a whole bunch of people basically worked very hard, and some of them come from my family. So I know how the Marxist mind can work.
The Thapars?
The Thapars, yes. So I know how they took the Hindu out of the Bharatiya, and how this project unfolded intellectually, and where it has actually left us today. Where, as Pavan Verma writes, a deracinated bunch of Indians began to reflexively doubt anyone who wanted to talk about or revive our Hindu-ness.
I think as you put it, there are people who are out to burn this book, right? And as you pointed out, not very liberal of them to burn this book. I think we have a satanic verse on our hands. But the title is a curious one. When I was going through
actually, I disagree. It's not a satanic verse, because it's critical of the BJP's outlook on certain issues. It's a very, I think if people were to give it a chance and I'm glad that it's on the bestseller list. But if the other side were to embrace it, they would come away perhaps feeling a little more reassured, but they also might find that they may not have a plank to oppose Modi going into 2024. So this book sort of answers that fundamental question, are we becoming a Hindu Rashtra under Modi? As the left says, that it's the last chance to stop him.